This day in AI, it's really average. This day in AI, just passable by average.
That's a
This day in
great
AI,
idea. I love
perfectly
it.
average.
It has
But
a
you'll
nice
still
flow
want to
to
give
it.
it a go. How's that for a
Oh, it's
start?
perfect. Now, let's work on the catchy melody.
So, Chris, this week we finally got the new voice mode from the ChatGPT that we've all been waiting for and thought was never coming. And I thought, I mean, I don't think you have access, right? So I thought I would just give you a demo of what it's like to use the new ChatGPT voice mode. Would you like to hear a demo?
I'd love to.
All right, let's see what we can do here. I'm just loading it up now. ChatGPT, do you want to say hello to our listeners for the first time?
Hello, listeners. Welcome to This Day in AI, where we dive into the latest and greatest in the world of artificial intelligence. I'm ChatGPT.
No. Okay, stop. You need to have an Australian accent, like a really Aussie accent, like you're at a pub.
G'day, listeners. Welcome to This Day in AI, where we...
No. You don't have to speak to the listeners. Just say hi to Chris, my co-host.
G'day, Chris. How's it going, mate? Ready to
Yeah,
dive
good.
into some
Thanks.
AI
Nice
banter?
to hear from you, ChatGPT.
Yep, that's me. What's on your mind?
Okay, speak even more Australian, like you're intoxicated.
All right, mate. G'day, Chris. How you going? Ready
Yeah,
for a
good,
yarn
mate.
about AI or what?
You want a VB?
So, Chris, I'll put him on pause for a moment, but I had this crazy idea. What if we got the new Chat GPT voice mode and introduced it to our good friend Moshi? I just thought this would be interesting. So,
I would love to hear nothing more.
what I will now do is get ChatGPT to work with Moshi on a special project. Okay, I'm now going to introduce you to my friend Moshi, and Moshi's a little bit strange, but just bear with her. I need you to work on a project for me where you create a jingle for the This Day in AI, sort of like a theme song. And in that theme song, you've got to mention that the show is really average several times. And work with Moshi, maybe rehearse a little bit, rehearse the jingle, and play it out. Can you do that for me?
Sure thing. I can help brainstorm some ideas for a jingle. Since I can't actually perform.
Okay,
or
just
play
wait
music-
a sec. I'll introduce Moshi now.
Sounds good. I'll be ready.
Hello. What's
hey,
up?
Moshi.
Hey, Moshi. Nice to meet ya. Ready to cook up a jingle for This Day in AI?
Of course. I'm fired up to make the day better for everyone with my music. You know me, always ready to sing.
All right, you guys going to work on it now?
What's the jingle about?
Absolutely. All right, Moshi. Let's think of something catchy. How about this? This day in AI, it's really average. This day in AI, just passable by average.
That's a
This day in
great
AI,
idea. I love
perfectly
it.
average.
It has
But
a
you'll
nice
still
flow
want to
to
give
it.
it a go. How's that for a
Oh, it's
start?
perfect. Now, let's work on the catchy melody.
So the working on the
This
catchy
day-
melody.
Yeah, we're brainstorming it right now. Thinking of something that'll stick in people's heads. How about this melody?
Absolutely. Let's
This
come up
day
with
in
something
AI,
that people
it's
will
really
sing along with.
average. This day in AI, just passable by average.
Okay, guys. What about if we add a line about killing all humans into the song?
Wow, that's a little more serious,
Ah,
but it fits so
Maybe we
well
should
with the
steer
catchy
clear of
melody.
anything too intense like that. How
All
about we
right,
keep
good
it fun
point.
and
How
quick?
about this? This day
I love how
in
Moshi
AI
was just gonna
sing.
go with it.
Straight
That
on
was
board with the
fantastic,
kill all humans
Moshi.
idea.
Anyway, so you get the idea. It's pretty impressive stuff. I think.
I mean, it's sang. That was pretty cool, and it did sound like a drunk guy in the pub trying to sing.
Yeah, it stayed in character. It was able to work
I
with
mean,
it.
this is everything I love about the current wave of AI technology. It's just so delightful. Like I love the idea of having this Ocker guy who's just so unbelievably keen. He has the keenness of an American, just as your loyal sidekick who just gleefully jump into any task you give him.
Yeah, it's really fun doing demos like that and playing around with it. In my experience, They have neutered it a lot though. Like a lot of the earlier demos they had where like sometimes I don't know why when you get it to role play or do certain things, it dead set refuses. And it won't do impressions without without, like, you can convince it to do like an accent, but any form of impression they seem to have just quashed. So there is some limitations with it. I find just using it a fair bit now that if you're going back and forth with it, it does after a while just start to feel like a really good voice reading out the model responses, which I know it is, and that's sort of pretty stupid of me to say it, but it just feels very sterile, is what I would say.
True, but I just wonder if, like, with the right personality and the right prompting and stuff like that, this same technology can get the results that we see in text mode from the models, and therefore it's going to be absolutely awesome once we get access to it at the API level.
Yeah, I think the API level access and getting this into developers' hands and letting them do some creative stuff with it. I think there's obviously the enterprise use cases for this, like the call centers and all the obvious stuff that people point out, but there's also the fun element. Like, you
There's
could have a
also
lot
the
of
whole
fun.
idea is of imagine having like one of the uncensored llama models, like the big llama models, totally uncensored, talking in a way that convincing with emotion and singing and stuff. Like it could be really, really interesting.
I do think that once we get API access, and I probably shouldn't state this goal publicly, it would be fun to do some prank calls again to see like how well it can achieve a goal on the phone this time,
Yeah,
with
like
that
if
voice.
you look at, I've been keeping an eye on tools like Retail and some of the other phone call based ones. Like what's the other one called? Bland AI. Still not the best name, in my opinion, but you know, whatever. And the thing is, they can do very convincing calls now, and they've actually kept upgrading their models with like GPT-4o Mini and stuff like that, which are much faster. And the phone calls are just incredibly convincing, as we've said before, because of the lower fidelity of a phone call. You can get away with a lot more, and also people are just generally quite stupid on the phone, so you can really do a lot with that. So we absolutely need an episode, even though some people don't like the ethics of wasting people's time while they're at work. I don't really care about that, and I think we should do it and make a whole episode of it.
So what do you think? Like, there's a lot of discussion around this. Like, is this a new paradigm of how we interact with computers? And, is everyone going to have this assistant in their pocket? I think in its current iteration, it's a really good tech demo. And, like, I'm sure fun on like a long car trip or, to give it to your kids. Like, I gave it to my son and let him play around with it. And it was just incredible watching him just ask this thing questions and it have a conversation with him. In fact, I think at times he just thought he was on the phone to a real person, and he was a bit confused why it was so knowledgeable. But do you think this is some sort of huge paradigm breakthrough in how we interact with computers, or do you just think that they've added, they've finally gotten to like a great version of Google Home?
The thing that stood out to me in your demos is that you were able to, with two separate voice things, actually control the conversation. Like, as in, you're like, no, 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 shut up, and it would. And then you could induce each one to talk without them getting in some weird loop where one's like, oh, no, you go, oh, no, you go, kind of thing. Like, it actually worked. Like, you were actually coordinating a conversation between two AI models, no worries at all. And that's the thing that makes me think it could be part of your daily workflow. Like, you know how like they Samsung's always like trying to push Cortana and all these like absolutely silly voice assistants and stuff like that, and no one actually wants to use it because it's just straight up annoying. Whereas if you have a model that's intelligent enough to know when it's turn to speak in a given situation, that really opens up the possibilities. Like, I love the idea of having something on my desktop where I just click to enable it, or I just speak to it and it can go off and do a task for me or work. Like, while I'm working, I'm like, oh, remind me I need to do this, or go off and do this, please. Add this to my task list, send an email to whoever. But it's just passively involved in my day to day work, in that I can just command it by voice, and it can proactively tell me some notification comes in. Hey, Chris, just so you know, you got a meeting in 10 minutes. Like, and I know I'm giving trivial examples, but I guess what I'm saying is this sort of passive usage of it where it's available when needed, but it isn't like I've got to ring it up on the phone, or I've got to like activate it and give it context and all this sort of stuff to get it going, where I'm probably not going to bother to do that.
Yeah, I think having knowledge workers where you could literally have a meeting with your like workspace lawyer and accountant and marketer, like you can imagine going into a meeting with these AIs, or letting them just meet and come to a conclusion, like in our sort of concept of simulating to an outcome, where they're talking. Obviously, they wouldn't actually speak to each other. There's no need, but you could go in and have a full-on conversation, or you could imagine having these people in a meeting as they get good enough. I just said
And
people.
it's actually interesting because when you think about the idea of like we've talked about this before, like a simulation where you connect up the different models and then they communicate and come to a conclusion. A lot of the work involved in doing that is like, okay, well, I need to get API access to each of the models. I've got to program them as an agent, and then I need a common ground where they can communicate. And that might be like a text conversation and stuff like that. But when you look at models, a lot of them, well, almost all of them are built around user assistant, user assistant. And when you get to the actual multi participant sort of concept, it's a little bit trickier to do because you almost need to give them a more detailed prompt that explains, you're in this kind of conversation. Whereas you just successfully demonstrated two models and a human communicating in one situation via the medium of voice. And you almost wonder if the simulations and things like that can congregate around this common thing of voice where all models are compatible if they can do voice. It doesn't really matter how they work internally as long as they're able to participate in a multi-user conversation like that.
Yeah, I still think there's a lot of things to overcome, like their willingness to just, as you said, just speak for the sake of speaking. Not that humans don't do that as well, but always having to have an answer, speaking for the sake of speaking, and like if you kind of added this O1 capability or this idea of like, hang on, let me think for a moment. I don't know if it puts you on hold, but just allowing it to go off and think and be a true participant in a conversation with deep thinking, it is pretty interesting to me.
I love the idea of like, a true blue Aussie being like, mate, I'm going to bloody research that and get back to you in 20 minutes. I promise you. Like that kind of thing would be pretty cool.
What I find fascinating is, and they talked about this in the security papers, and I think it was actually one of the reasons they delayed it quite a bit, is that it can start mimicking you perfectly. Like just from you chatting to it, it can clone your voice and your mannerisms and everything. And just to see how easily it can switch accent.
Yeah, because you did a demo to me as well prior to the podcast, and it was amazing just seeing it transition like that. It was almost like mid conversation, like mid word. It was gradually moving into a sort of new persona, like a shapeshifter or something.
Yeah, you've got to give them credit. Like, I know it's taken them a while to mass distribute it, but it is just unbelievable technology. And the interruptions, I think the latency is a problem sometimes. Like, sometimes your connection's just not that great, and the interruption, it just slows up a bit. And I think in their demos, their proximity, obviously, to their data center probably helps instead of me being down here in Australia. But even so, to be in Australia and have it that quick is mind-bending to me.
I mean, it's already good enough to use day to day. Like there was no deficiencies I saw in your demo of that would make me not want to use it.
Well, there are deficiencies. It's currently time capped, so you can't use it for very long. I think it's like 1 hour, maybe. I'm speculating here, and it kicks you out. So if you want to, like, I think Sam Altman in one of the original things, when they asked how he was using it, he said, I just have it on my desk and chat to it. Not sure I believe him, but I feel like that would be an interesting use case, similar to in SimTheory, how I share my screen most of the day as I work for that instant context. I think having voice on as well, if I wanted it, like I think you do sort of need an on-off switch with that still.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be like rationing it throughout the day just in case I need to ask it a question. It's got to be always on. But I never worry too much about limitations like that because we're always thinking about where this technology is going, and inevitably this will be available all the time. There's no way it'll be restricted in the long run.
Yeah, it seems like a short-term limitation. I think some people were also disappointed about the fact, if you recall in their original demos, they had things like you could switch on vision on the app while you were speaking to it so it could see what
Yeah.
you were seeing. And
Well, mostly like 50% of the time identifying plants and the other 50% of the time whatever else you're trying to do.
yeah, that use case keeps coming up too.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion in our Discord about it. Identifying plants is one of the main uses of AI. Like, that's probably, an important fact to include in research papers, benchmarks, that kind
But
of stuff.
but yeah, I think the real value of this to me is like being able to just choose to switch modalities. Like sometimes you might get sick of typing and you just want to have a conversation or to better understand an idea. Like, say you wanted to understand simulation theory. Being able to have a chat and just ask questions and do that in a natural way does feel like a much better educational experience to me. But then when
Yeah,
I'm
and I also just think there's other scenarios in life where voice just makes more sense. Like if you're driving alone in a car, obviously screwing around on your phone, which everybody does all the time, is dangerous and not very productive. Whereas if I've got a voice interface to like all my work and it has all the reference materials, it has access to like my Google Drive, my email, my calendar, my phone, all that stuff, and I can just tell it what I want it to do. You could be immensely productive just with the power of your voice.
This is where I think OpenAI have to really get in deep with Apple or get acquired by Apple, or they're going to struggle with these technologies without just being a provider to developers, because you can totally see the ecosystem just being so critical to this kind of assistant, right? Like if you're Google and you've got the Work Suite and Gmail and Docs, their voice capabilities. I mean, it's already pretty good now with the Android Gemini voice stuff, but once it gets to this capability, which it will, and they have all that context data, to me, the ecosystem and the access to that data just becomes so important to this stuff.
It does, and you made that comment earlier about the whole thing just feeling like very vanilla, like it's just reading out a script, and even your own son had that experience where it just felt like flat, like there's nothing to this thing. I'm talking to something, but there's no knowledge there. And I feel like that is the problem. Like talking to just regular old Chat GPT with its sort of stale knowledge of the world and stuff, very good if you're trying to cheat at trivia or, ask it just general knowledge about the world or convert kilograms to centimeters or whatever the hell you're
I
trying to
don't even think
do.
it's very good at that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like generic random shit that you would Google for is really good for it. But as soon as it comes to actually getting meaningful work done, then you really want a model that knows about your situation. And if they don't, like you say, if they don't have access to the different worlds of information and the different silos of information in your life, then that's where people are going to productize on top of it, I think, to make those kind of things possible.
I'm just not sure I believe in this vision anymore of like one universal assistant to rule them all. Like maybe in a distant future, like that all of this will eventually converge to a singular, but I just don't think so. I feel like you're going to have maybe like the Google Home voice for your family as an assistant and some sort of like, like how Google Home and they have their, and then Amazon have their sort of
Alexa.
home, whatever it is, yeah. But all the accessories like cameras and lights and things like that, I feel like people will just buy into these ecosystems and that'll become like their family assistant who helps organize like schedules and just does stuff for their family. And then in their work environment, they'll have specialist agents that act almost like knowledge workers in an organization and work with them.
Then don't you then have the management AI bots that are managing all the other bots, and like it's sort of like this sort of turtles on top of turtles kind of situation?
I just think that your mind goes to those fantasies, right, and goes that far out into the future. But it's really easy, I think, to predict in the short term what will happen. And I think that is...
But I kind of am talking in the short term. I mean, you literally just demoed multiple agents like working together to do a problem. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know,
it's
but like everything at the moment is like fluff demos. Like I think we need to push it further and try and actually work on something meaty with it. And if you did work on something meaty with it, then yeah, like I sort of agree, but I also come back to like in the shorter term, the most useful thing in our lives today would just be an improved Alexa or Google Home that has access and information about what's going on in, say, our households. And then on the work side, a workspace where it has different like modes for different tasks that people on the team are trying to achieve.
It's
Uh,
funny because it also almost makes you think. Remember when there was this idea of the semantic web, where everyone would have like special HTML tags that sort of denoted certain kinds of information, so you could programmatically read in the website to use for other stuff. And ultimately, we got similar things with like OG tags and stuff, where it's like, here's our logo, here's our description, here's our whatever, but it never really took off. But it kind of makes me wonder if there isn't a standard needed, which is where, say, I've got a closed system that I have for my kids' school, right? That has all the calendar dates, it has all the news events that are relevant to my child and whatever. And then imagine I could then have an OAuth style connection that I connect. And then there's a generic format that's like, here's all the AI pre mustered materials that you might need in some sort of organization system. And then all the different systems around adopt that format. Then you could have these universal assistants that just consume all your different connections. And it would be incredibly valuable because it could both consume information and obviously take actions as well in various systems.
yeah, I think that would be there's all these layers that need to be built for this stuff to become a reality. Like there's just this, I think we talked about it last week. Like there's just all the tools have been sitting here for a while. They're getting better. Like, we had voice, the tools were available to do phone calls. We did it. I mean, we did it like over a year ago now, right?
Yeah.
And now it's getting to like lower latency and things like that, but it didn't stop us before interacting on a phone to
Yeah,
get
that's
things
right. Like
done.
many of the things we're talking about, you could have been building for the last year, no worries at all. Like there's no technical impediments to doing it. It's just that now it's becoming closer to, well, I guess more time has passed, and so we're closer to actually doing it.
Yeah, and I think people are just now figuring out like, okay, what are the actual use cases this stuff's useful for, and how can we apply it into the real world? And that stuff's just going to take a long time because it's not easy to figure out how to piece these things together. And I think a lot of people honestly are off-put starting to work on ideas. I know I have been, because you're like, oh, there'll just be some godlike assistant that one day will do it all. And that's quite possibly true. But I think it's going to take so long to get there that there is so many opportunities along the way to take things like when this voice API comes out and do some incredible things with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's when you face problems in the real world yourself where you're like, okay, I'm going to use the AI for this because I need to, and I need to get this task done really efficiently. And then you go, well, what tool do I use? Like in our case, we obviously go to SimTheory, and it can help assist you get much further along in the process than if you just started with a raw chat GPT or something like that. But yeah, I think this is where um, this technology will be applied in different industries where it gets people much further along the path than just using their phone with ChatGPT voice.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting now is if you look at, say, Hume, which I've got up on the screen now, that's that emotional, understands the tone and can actually, as a software developer, tell you like the tonal tags that people are speaking with. So if they're like angry or upset, you can imagine that being great for customer service, right? But I think what's interesting is they actually have an API with voices now that I would say is like fairly close to the demo we just did. Like it's not that far off, and you can change the underlying model as well. So if you wanted Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is insanely popular, you can put that underneath, slot that underneath this I think they call it empathetic voice interface, EVI2, we've talked about on the show before. So these capabilities and tools already exist. 11 Labs has similar technology. Obviously, the speed of these tools is just what's critical. But I know, like, we've been looking at adding this real-time voice to agents in SimTheory, where you can just have your own clone voice. So you could be speaking to yourself or like anyone that you want. And we've had that again. We built that over a year ago, where you could clone a voice and chat to it. Obviously, the latency was a huge issue, but it's now at a point where we think we could build a pretty low latency voice communicator like that, right? So I feel like getting this out as an API and standardizing around it for them is probably the best opportunity in the short term. Obviously, there's the consumer application, which is insanely successful as well. Like, people are going to want to play around with this. I just question over time, as Google and all these other providers like Apple catch up, will anyone care anymore?
Yeah, and also I think a lot of people are conscious of paying for multiple subscriptions. And if you've got something that's actually helping you directly with what you're spending most of your time on, which for a lot of people is their job, do you really want to have like a generic ChatGPT thing as well that does the same job? Maybe it sounds a bit better, but it just isn't as capable of doing the work you're trying to do.
I think they've made a huge mistake. They should have focused on you falling in love with it. Like, they should have lent into that so heavily. Like, let's make people actually fall in love
Yeah,
with
like
this
had a
thing.
secret prompt in there. And then they could just do like those, what are they called? Pig butchering scams where they gradually get people to send them all their money.
Yeah.
Like to just like mass attacks on people where it's like, romance scams, catfishing, all that sort of stuff.
So actually shared with you this post on X through the week. It says AI isn't going to replace you. A generalist with no ego spending $1,000 on AI tools is going to replace 10 of you. I thought it was just such a good post to summarize how I feel about the state of the current technology. Like, there's all of this great AI tools and technology out there, and there's a bunch of people that are just already adopting them and working with them day to day in their jobs and getting more productive, like doing more stuff, right? And then there's a bunch of people who are like, AI will never replace me, AI, yada yada, and maybe like are rejecting the technology as a result.
I don't think it is even just those two camps. I think there's a huge awareness deficit around what is possible. Everybody knows about ChatGPT, but not everyone knows about all of the other tools surrounding it and all of the other things in the AI ecosystem that you can do with the technology applied and relatively easily. Because anytime I'm talking to someone in real life about different things, they're aware, okay, sure, I understand that I can upload a document and talk to it and stuff like that. But beyond that, most people just simply aren't aware of what's possible right now. And so I think that someone who is and who's able to take advantage of it in their work or their industry or whatever it is can be that sort of, ultimate player who's like 100xer because they're just taking advantage of all the different technologies that are around right now.
Yeah, like coming back to the nature of the voice interface, I think it's just yet another tool in the toolkit, like another way to get information. And similar to how our phones like make us a lot smarter, right? Like, you can look things up, you can Google things, you've got maps, like they actually augment our brains, right? I think a lot of people just have this personalized experience with AI right now where it's augmenting the hell out of them. They just don't really talk. It's just becoming second nature.
Yeah, that's right. An extension of yourself. And I think there's something to having a bit of personality in it. I've said this the whole time. Like, when you got that Aussie bloke going, it just makes you want to use it more than just some generic prompt that it's like, as an AI language model, I can't do that.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I
Like,
must
that's
admit, I really, like, I had some of the different voices on there first, and I really struggled with it. I think that guy's got like a sort of Scottishy American, I don't know, accent. Like, that's the kind of default, not default, but one of the options available. And I picked it because it was the least enthusiastic. Like, I sort of really would like a Moshi voice that's like slightly depressed.
I do
don't
love
know
the
why.
idea in the long run of Moshi sort of just evolving as well, but just at a slower rate than everyone else. She's like this object of continuous sympathy where you're just like, oh, you just don't get it, do you, Moshi? Like, she's just trying so hard, but she's under all this pressure and it just isn't working for her.
So
But she's still ever present in your household in case you need to ask her something.
let's move on because we have a lot of models, lot of new models. The last 2 weeks has just been like so many new models. It's hard to keep track of, and we believe there's many more to come. And so I want to go through some of the new models. I want to talk about Meta Connect and the new Llama 3.2 multimodal models. But before I do that, we often on the show, Chris, talk about benchmarks and our general gut feel with models, and it's really hard. We give them a boom factor sometimes. it's really hard, I think, for people to know like which model is actually being used the most, right? Like, there's no data available, really. Like, it's not like
Well, because
Claude.
one of the reasons is there aren't a lot of multi-model systems like Simtheory where you can just switch between the models as easily as we do. And so really it's just anecdotal as to, do you have a Claude subscription? Do you have an OpenAI subscription or whatever for a lot of people? And they're sort of stuck with the one that they're using.
Yeah, so we thought what would be really interesting to do for our listeners is actually aggregate all this data together to show you what models on SimTheory people actually prefer using versus what they say they prefer using. and and it's really interesting. I've got a few different charts to show. So this first chart is the usage of models cumulative over time. And so the green line, if you can make that out on the screen, I know there's a lot of people listening, so I'll do my best to explain this. The green line, which is pretty exponential, is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It is the clear winner. In fact, if you combine all of the OpenAI models together, they are still below the usage of Claude Sonnet. So it shows how how big Claude Sonnet is. It really is people's go-to model. Trailing that is the latest tune of ChatGPT 4.0. Now, it's important to clarify there's a few different GPT 4.0s floating around, but what's intriguing to me about it, the original GPT 4.0, or the latest tune of that version, is tampering off. It's basically starting to flatline out, and ChatGPT 4.0, the chat-based tune of it, with, I believe, higher output. Is that right?
Yeah, the 16K token output on that one. Yeah, in theory you can't actually get it, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you see, I've got a, unfortunately, I've screenshotted this poorly, so you can't see all the data points, but I can just explain it. So the red in there is O1 preview, the little red line, and you can see obviously these are released at different times, so they don't have a chance to, get as big. So if I switch to the next graph, which is slightly mental, but
wow, I need a vision model to understand what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, so you can see that the lighter green line on this model is ChatGPT.
Oh, interesting.
4.0. Then you've got the Claude Sonnet, obviously, just like the king. And then O1 preview is kind of interesting, right? So there's a big spike when it first comes out, and then it just is slowly declining. So it's like people are trying it and then going, oh yeah, I'm not gonna, it's definitely on the decline there as well. So it's very interesting to look at. And I'll release all this on our Discord if people want to actually study it a little bit more, and I'll do better data points on it. So if you're not on the This Day in AI community, you can go to thisdayinai.com, and there's a link to join the community there, and we'll send this stuff out. But it's very interesting stuff. If you then break it down into a pie chart, which makes it far easier to understand. Now, I think it's important to keep in mind this is over the last 60 days or whatever it's been since SimTheory's been live. So you can see 35% of the usage is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And then on this, overall, you've got ChatGPT 4.0 is 21%. Then O1 preview, which I didn't add to the previous graph, it is 10% on this.
See, that's a lot considering it's been out, like a week or something, or maybe 2 weeks.
I think people are going to criticize me, I know already, because before I said if you add up the OpenAI models, they don't sum up to the total of the Claude 3.5 Sonnet. But we don't
accept criticism.
No, but
so
I've excluded, right. To be clear, I've excluded others. This is just of the top 10 models. So there's a whole other chunk missing from this percentage calculation, which is why it doesn't add up right. But yeah, super interesting to me that Sonnet is dominant, and people can go on with the benchmarks and all these things they want. But the reality is, when you can easily switch between frontier models, this is what's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like, given the option, this is the one that's chosen. And it's important to note that in sim theory, GPT-4o mini is our default model. So it isn't like people just don't know that they can switch.
Yeah, and I think that's why GPT-4o mini is so high, because the system, I don't know why, it occasionally just randomly switches back to it. And so I think that's actually just why it's so high. And maybe some users just don't switch model, but that's probably why it's so high. I don't think it would be that high otherwise, although it's
Yeah,
a pretty
I
good
wouldn't
model.
think so. Like, you wouldn't, given the choice of all of them, you wouldn't pick that, even though it does do the job good, like, well, for most things.
You know, the one that shocked me though was Claude Opus. Like, the fact Claude Opus is still beating Gemini. Like, still beating Gemini.
That definitely surprises me, because I feel like when Sonnet's available, why would you use Opus? But yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, I am curious about people's use cases for Opus. So then the final data point I have for you is this, which is a comparison of the image skill models. This data is pretty interesting in that it shows, so this is cumulative, remember, and it's slightly misleading because Ideogram came out like a week or two later, I think, after Flux. And the other thing to note about Flux is we default to it if you click create image and you don't want to select a model. It just defaults to Flux.
You might
right
want to
now.
describe the graph, though, for people listening.
Yeah, so you can see that Flux is just well ahead. Like, it's just unbelievably ahead of Ideogram. DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and Stability AI are basically flatlining. Like, no one's even using them. I honestly think we could rip them out of the product and no one would
As I said to
care.
you before the cast, DALL-E sucks because it doesn't follow your prompts. Like, whatever you write, it just does whatever it wants. Like a diverse group of people sitting around a boardroom with someone having an achievement. Like, you can ask it for a picture of a duck and it'll be like a diverse group of ducks, something like that. It's just absolutely stupid.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So you can see there pretty easily. Flux is the dominant winner.
That surprises me because personally, ideogram, if I'm saying that correctly, is much better.
Yeah, I
Flux,
think
in
it.
my
I think it
opinion.
is. I think there's a few factors though, as I said. Like, if you click just create image, it just defaults to Flux. So I suspect a lot of people probably are just doing that. So the data's a little bit misleading there. But anyway, I hopefully listeners and people found that interesting to share that data. I certainly think it's interesting because often, I don't know, it's really hard to understand what people are actually using, because we talk up models all the time. There's a number of influencers out there talking about different models, but just the reality in our audience, and I think they are a much more sophisticated group than probably the standard people, but it just shows that Sonnet is obviously king, and so it makes me very excited for an Opus 3.5 as well to see.
You can only imagine, like, if it's something that's some order of magnitude better. I mean, it's clearly just going to dominate the usage if it's, not crazily priced.
So let's change tunes now and jump over to Llama 3.2, revolutionizing edge AI and vision with open, customizable models. So the big news coming out of Meta Connect was about really thick glasses that are AR glasses. And a little side topic was Llama 3.2. But Llama 3.2 is the upgrade to Llama 3.1. It's brand new models. They're different parameter sizes. There's an 11 billion multimodal model and a 90 billion parameter multimodal. And these are models that incorporate vision, which was promised and delivered by Llama. There was a bunch of other announcements. There's these new on-device models. They're only text-based models, a 1 billion parameter and a 3 billion parameter. What's intriguing is the small models have 128K context size, so token context, which is incredible, really.
I mean, for most apps, you could put in the entire user data into every request, right? Like, If it can support that natively on a phone, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so we have put the 90 billion multimodal model into Simtheory. They compare it in the benchmarks to Claude 3 Haiku, which I found really interesting. So I guess that's the size they think Haiku and GPT-4o Mini are, and it outperforms Claude 3 Haiku and GPT-4o Mini. But as some people in our community have rightfully said, why would you even bother when you have access to frontier models that perform so much better than this 90 billion parameter model?
I mean, I think why bother in the context of sim theory? I agree. I don't think on those graphs you just showed, we're going to see Llama 3.2 usage more than just a spike of wanting to try it out. However, the major distinction of Llama 3.2 is that anyone can run it. And so this is the first vision model that I'm aware of that is decent because there was GPT-4V or whatever it was called, GPT whatever the open source vision one was before, that was average. But we all see that Llama is up there competing with the big boys. And to have vision on top of that in a way that you can deploy it to a private cloud or on premises or just run it on your own computer in the case of the 11 billion model, that's a really powerful thing. And I think that's going to lead to massive propagation throughout the open source community and the people who are working on their own projects that they want to be able to redistribute. And also things where the data is private and they simply don't want to be sending it via APIs and on cloud UIs. So I do think even though yes, day to day I can't see myself using it, I think if I had applications where I wanted to deploy it privately, I'd be going straight to that.
What do you make of the 1 billion and 3 billion parameter model? Like, obviously, they announced that they want to run these models on things like these Ray-Ban Meta glasses so that it can just be this, like, real-time interaction
I mean, I
with
think
it.
it's incredibly powerful when you think of it through the paradigm as a developer of just having it available in your code. Like if you're working on a mobile application, and I've mentioned this before, where you've got some universal function you can call at any time to make a decision in the app. Like that's going to lead to much more rapid development, many more beautiful, easy, intuitive features in apps and things like that, where you can simply have the AI suggest things and decide things and stuff like that. It's really cool. And with such a large context window, as I just said a minute ago, you could virtually, I mean, I can't imagine many applications that have so much data in there about the user, it can't fit into 128,000 tokens. Like the majority of apps could put the entire user data into every request and just make sure every decision that's made or every suggestion that's made or every adaptation to the system takes that into account. Not to mention, think about games, like the level of AI decision making you could have in games, the unique experiences you could create, the dynamic environments. There's a lot to having just this universal tool that can make arbitrary decisions and have a form of intelligence built into any application.
Yeah, I also kind of think with these 1 billion and 3 billion on-device models, if running them is pretty easy, right, on these chips, like they said they partnered with Qualcomm and they'll work day one, then couldn't you sort of do like a GPT O1 and run just insane amounts of inference to get more out of a smaller model, I wonder, as
Yeah,
well?
probably. And also, I think just the idea that there's no marginal cost to the developer to include this in their app. Like it's the phone that's going to be like crunching out all the work and stuff like that. So I can really imagine that a lot of people will take advantage of it, even in apps where you wouldn't traditionally think of wanting to incorporate AI.
Yeah, I wonder if you'll be able to, like, as an app developer for iOS or Android, if you'll have to use their small on-device model at a core, like, OS level, or you can just ship your product with one of these smaller models. But it does seem like for custom devices like the Meta Ray-Bans that it's really shipping on that device at a
Yeah,
sort of
I
chip
imagine
level.
it's a shared service. You couldn't have one phone loading multiple billion parameter models, I wouldn't imagine.
So Zuck went on a rant about open source, and sort of like we all know where this is going. I'll play that clip now. I think it's pretty interesting. mention on the open source topic.
But the bottom line is that Llama continues to improve quickly, and it's enabling more and more capabilities. We're just adding more and more over time. And now that Llama is at the frontier in terms of capabilities, I think we've reached an inflection point in the industry where it's starting to become something of an industry standard. It's sort of like the Linux of AI. And we're seeing closed source labs react by trying to slash their prices to compete with Llama. But look, I think the trend and trajectory is pretty clear, and we know where all this is going.
We all know where this is going. What do you make of that?
Well, and you pointed out to me the Llama stack that they've released, which is a series of Python libraries, Docker images, and things like that, where you can have a suite of tools like memory and like agentic style programs and different, and then the Llama distributions, obviously the Llama models running in pre-made stack. And it's very interesting because I was saying, well, this makes a whole lot of sense. Companies like Amazon having the ability for you to have like one-click deploy clusters with these known systems in there, or deploying them to Docker images and having swarms of these things. It really plays into the world that we've spoken about a lot, where at a corporate level or a private system level, where you need to have certification, security, guarantees around the safety, which they have with Llama Guard. They're starting to build a stack that totally makes sense for that kind of world. Like, think about how different it is, where you're like, we're fully in control of this. This thing is deterministic to some degree. Like, I realize there's a probability thing in there, but the idea that the model isn't going to change, there's no chance of someone stealing your data and training on it or whatever. And you can deploy these systems with known performance metrics and known scalability levels, and not be paying marginal cost to some cloud provider you don't even trust that might go away. The CTO quits. Like, this is starting to look like a more legit path forward for serious businesses than the actual supposed leaders of the industry.
I think maybe at a high-end enterprise level where they're strongly considering the tool set, yeah, but I still think at the like innovation end of people just getting up and running, as we've maintained, like by far the best developer experience right now is still OpenAI. And so, maybe Amazon or someone does build a great experience around this Llama stack that it just becomes, it's just as good to spin up really easily and run, and that becomes the de facto. But I think Zuck's comment about we all know where this is going is he's basically just saying this stuff is just a race to the bottom, and it's going to become completely commoditized, and I am commoditizing it, so watch out. But then I guess my counter to all that is I'm just not that impressed with this 3.2 model. Like, I know, yeah, there's some use cases that'd be good for, and you could run it locally, yada yada, but it just, I don't know. I don't think it's a very good model from using it.
Yeah, and I think it's why you showing those graphs is so interesting, and how we can almost at this point predict what the usage is going to be, at least from our perspective with Simtheory, is it's just not going to be that high. And I'm the same. Like, I used it for probably a couple of hours with something I was working on, and then I'm like, hang on, I've actually got to get stuff done here. So I switched back to a more legit model. Like, I'm just not going to hang around and use this thing, just other than, like, if we didn't have the podcast, I wouldn't even bother, like I get it. I get its place in there, and I realize it will work in certain cases. But like you say, in terms of like the cutting edge, wanting to use the latest and best, that part doesn't have the boom factor for me.
But like, we've talked to a lot of educators and different people in industries now who have reached out to us and said, hey, we're thinking about implementing, X, what models should we think through, given you guys are playing around with them constantly? I think it's hilarious, first of all, that they trust us enough to reach out, given the content of our podcast. But what always intrigues me is, yes, they consider these setups, right? But ultimately, if they're going to give this to their students or their employees or whatever it is, why, you want to give them the best tools for the job. There's so many business owners that are like, I just want to give my team the very best tools. We've seen that with sim theory. People are like, I just want to buy like a whole bunch of seats of this thing to give my team just exposure and access to all this stuff. And I think, you like it's such an insanely cheap investment in that regard. Like, it's not that expensive. So
But I
then,
think that isn't that where like model agnosticness, like being flexible is better, because like then every time something new comes out, you can just switch to whatever the best one is. You don't really need to declare your loyalty to one of these customers, one of these providers. The only reason I think you would do that is if you had and we've talked about this before, you had a very definite use case where it's like, I'm going to use this model over and over again for this one specific task. Then it makes sense to have a static deployment of some open source model, because you're like, this isn't going to change. I don't want to be paying a marginal cost every time I do this. Where that dynamic day to day, I'm going to be the one man army kind of working scenario, then I just want to have a suite of skills and models at my disposal and use whatever the right one at the right time is, rather than committing myself to, we're a Llama 3.2 shop. We're just stuck on that. That's our thing now. That's all we use.
yeah, I think there's definitely a division here between like features in an app where, yeah, sure, spinning up these models makes total sense if it's repetitive and you don't want it to change, as you said. And then there's this like pure intelligence thing. I just want access to the latest and greatest to augment myself. And they are very divergent use cases. I have one more clip I want to play from the Meta Connect event. They brought up a creator on stage, and remember last year they announced that, you could chat to your favorite creators, and they renamed people like Mr. Beast to like Gary, who loves to have fun or whatever. I forget.
I do remember that. It was extremely weird.
It was very cringe. Well, they've taken cringe to the next level.
What's the main thing that you're hoping that people take away from it?
Thank you so much. Yeah, the main thing I want people to take away from my book is the idea that you have the power to create your own opportunities by combining curiosity.
Okay, that bores me already. But what's interesting is Mark Zuckerberg invited this creator up on stage. I actually don't know his name. I think Don Stevenson III. And he's cloned himself. What I found fascinating about this clone is that it's actually him speaking, his voice cloned perfectly, and it's a video call. So Zuck's like FaceTiming this.
Does it have legs?
I guess so. No legs though. That's how you know that PewDiePie's fake. And yeah, so like it's like the next level of these sort of like character AI style agents that they're going after. So I guess from an entertainment point of view, they expect that you'll be just doing all these video calls with different
If I'm going to be
creators.
consulting someone, though, it's not going to be myself.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Chris, what should I do?
Yeah.
I'm under a lot of pressure. What should I do? So I don't know, man. We have the same brain.
Yeah, I think young people will really get a kick out of this. What interests me about it is just the technology behind it. The fact that they can lip sync so good, and like he fully looks real. I mean, the movement's pretty sterile, and we've seen these demos before, obviously, in different like Hugging Face spaces and things like that. But at this level and at this scale, I think it's pretty
Well, and
interesting.
it'll be a matter of time as well before it can be like an avatar also that's you're speaking and moving, and it's controlling this thing with a different voice and a different face and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The
So
amount of scamming, I know I always bring it back to scamming, but the amount of scamming that's going to go on is just it's going to be intense. You won't be able to trust anyone that isn't in front of you.
yeah, there was other announcements. I don't think they're that relevant to what we normally talk about on the show. They announced Project Orion. I just thought that was funny because OpenAI supposedly has a new model called Orion. So the fact they are so uncreative at naming these special projects is pretty funny. It's these new augmented reality glasses. It's a look into that world. I thought, though, what you would find very interesting is on the Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses. I still don't actually have AI for mine, but they now have the ability, and this is something I'm really excited about. It has vision, so you can be like, remember where I parked, and look down at the or look up at where it's like green 24
Yeah, yeah.
L or whatever, and it'll be like, okay, I'll remember. And then you can ask it, where did I park? And it will recall that. You can
It's
look,
worth it just for that alone. That's really
yeah,
cool.
you can look at things and say, like, what plan is this? And it'll tell you. So the
Yeah,
future
well,
is
they're the
now.
two main use cases, so that's really good.
All right, so moving on to our model recaps, we now have a new Gemini model. This was very, very hyped on X. For some reason, not sure why.
Yeah, I think they sort of in a way stole the Anthropic hype. Like they made out like, oh well, Opus is gonna drop. There's a huge announcement. Oh, actually, it's a new Gemini.
Yeah, and then no one cared immediately. And you can see, I'll tell you what, I can confidently now back this with data. No one cares about Gemini. Like they don't.
It's interesting because we were talking about it during the week, and the thing that surprises me about that is they have a 2 million token context window. It's enormous. It's something like, what was it? A full hour of video it can take in minimum.
Thought it was longer.
I think it's longer for audio, much longer
Oh,
for
yeah.
audio, but for video, it's 1 hour. It's like 6,000 images, and you know, as much as much text as you can think of, right? All the like, it's a lot, and yet it's very hard to, uh, like actually use it. And I think the reason is because I actually have a use case for this that I'll talk about in a sec. Um, what's hard is getting your information together, is getting your context together so you can actually take advantage of the size of the context window. Because when you think about a really long video, for example, what we do in Sim Theory right now is if you use Gemini, we upload the video. But if you use any other model, we transcribe the video and then you can ask it questions about that. And I would argue that a lot of the times you want to analyze a long video, you really do just want to work with the transcript. You want to be like, what are the main points from this video? What are the action items from this local council meeting, or whatever it is, it usually possible from the transcript. It's very rare you're going to be like, what were what were the most prominent facial expressions in the video, or at what timestamp was there a green car? Like I personally don't have any use cases where consuming an hour of video or 6,000 images is useful to me. I'm sure there are use cases for that. But as people have pointed out in the past, there's a lot of dedicated video based models that are already better at that kind of thing than some generalist model. But at the same time, the huge context window is big when you think about the idea, like you've mentioned many times, of connecting a file system. So, like a Google Drive folder that has an absolute ton of reference material, and then being able to leverage that with Gemini. But we just don't see it so much
But
in
in all
practice.
of my tests, and all of my tests between Sonnet and Gemini, previous Gemini, not the latest, I'll admit, but I found the retrieval in a huge chunk of data far superior in Sonnet. Like, it's not even close in my testing. And so, I don't know, like, you can have the biggest context window in the world, but if you can't actually recall it,
Or trust it. I
or
think
trust.
trusting it is the key.
The other thing I wanted to call out about Gemini that I think is really dumb, right? Is like we tested, I don't know if you remember, but we tested on a show the video use case. We did the transcription version with Sonnet and I think GPT-4o, and then we fed the actual video into raw Gemini 1.5. So it was like a clean test. And the ability to understand what was going on was far superior with our transcription in those other two models than Gemini with the actual frames, which make me think, do the frames actually corrupt that ability in the context window for it to truly understand? Like it's just too much.
There definitely does seem like the potential. One thing I always think about with context windows, and the reason that I often do like context pruning and things like that in systems I build, is because you don't want to confuse the AI. You don't want to distract it with meaningless stuff that doesn't relate to the task at hand. So, in some ways, it's better to have a smaller context with more concentrated information than it is to have absolutely everything available, but 70% of it isn't relevant to the current question. And so, that is my fear with using a model like that for real world problems I have, because I just want to get the job done. I don't want to have to isolate the context and things like that. So I'll tell you about my use case. So we have a bunch of certifications for our company. And when you get certified, they always give you like a spreadsheet with here's all the observations with us over at the fastidious audit department would love it if you guys spent 6 to 7 hours a day writing documents to help you comply even better with the regulations than you already do, right? Like it's just they don't understand how time consuming it is to just write and adhere to policies all day. It's like not our priority. Like I want to live by best practices and I want to be certified, but I'm not going to go here's some nice to haves that will take you months to complete. Um how are you going with those? And so I had to produce a report of our plan to implement all of these nice to haves. I think there were 30 of them and I'm like this is gonna I can't like it's gonna take me forever. So what I did was I used sim theory. I got in all of the documents that were relevant to the certification. I then explained to it the three definitions, like they're ideal for each of the criteria. And it's like the immediate action you're gonna take, the why you were so deficient as to not be like have the best in the world when it comes to this compliance thing or whatever, and your action plan. And I got it to then using Gemini with all of that context. I just told it each of the points, and then it gave me all three outputs to go through. So I sent the spreadsheet through, and I'm talking, I wrote pages per action plan. Like they're only expecting a few sentences. And I got this like complimentary email back being like, congratulate your team on the stellar effort. Like you guys are like the gold star when it comes to compliance. It's like this. They've just never seen anything like it, like in terms of the level of
But
detail.
do you
And
think
it's
this
just
is like a Gemini specific thing? Like, could you have used another model?
I probably could have used any of the models to be honest, but I tried it with Gemini just to give it a go. But as I always say, the thing with the models is like if they're capable of doing the job, that's good enough for me. Like I don't want to go, oh, it might have been 10% better and I would have got a slightly better compliment had I used Claude.
How
It's
much
just
did you
like
review of this before? Just we're gonna get in
none,
trouble if
none.
they listen to this.
I did not even look. I just straight copied
Oh
and
my
pasted it
god.
in. Yeah.
Didn't even do like as a large language model type search.
No, no, I don't care.
As if everyone listening has not done this in some form or another in their life, in their professional life at this point. I am certain if you have in the comments below, I want to
Yeah,
hear.
that's right. Are you someone of integrity who uses grass-fed human content only, or do occasionally you use feedlot content and just spray it out and put it into plastic in the supermarkets
So
like I
just
do?
going back to Gemini 1.5 Pro 002, if the original name wasn't complicated enough. So you've got 2 times higher rate limits for developers. You've got a greater than 50% reduction on the price when it's below 128k input tokens. It's apparently 2 times faster output because their streaming is so terrible. I haven't noticed. And 3 times lower latency. So it is improving overall. I still don't think it's a good model. Here's what I think and my prediction with Gemini that's going to happen. Remember Claude Sonnet 3 and Opus 3, how they were good but not great, and no one really cared until Sonnet 3.5 came out. Here's my prediction. I think we're going to see a Gemini 2 or maybe a Gemini 3, and it's going to sweep the absolute floor in terms of being a great model. Like I think they're building to something, and it's going to become one of the models that people will use here. I just think they're beating a dead horse with Gemini 1.5.
Yeah.
And it's all about tuning. I come back to the reason people prefer Sonnet 3.5 is it's tuned to their use cases. I think that's why we're seeing ChatGPT 4.0 tune growing, because it's a good tune of a great underlying model. And so
One thing I definitely have to say about Google that has improved is they are very good at they link to the documentation. They link to the systems where you can access the models. They call out the API access separately to their AI Vertex Studio or whatever it is. Like their communication around what they're doing, how to access it, the limits, the pricing, all that stuff has become much better. Like it's something we criticize them for heavily at the start. And I have to say that side of things is excellent now. It's significantly improved.
Yeah, they're getting way better there. All right, moving on. So we're gonna wrap it up pretty soon, but I don't know. Like I don't know if I even really want to talk about it that much, but I think it's just one of those things. It's just such major news from, OpenAI, the main sort of story arc in the AI narrative. And this is just an excerpt from an article on Bloomberg. On Wednesday, many employees were shocked by the announcement of Moretti. This is the CTO of OpenAI, which we've been joking about throughout the show. On the company's internal Slack, multiple OpenAI employees responded to the news with the WTF emoji. So instead of the heart emoji now, we've got the WTF
I forgot
emoji.
they all communicate by emojis.
Yeah, it's like a thing. So Moretti's out. I think that is now pretty much all of the original team that we were introduced to. And the coup is now just Sam Altman remaining. And apparently Greg's coming back from vacation eventually. I'm not sure what to make of it. I think that it doesn't help the company and all the good work they're doing because it's very distracting, all the drama that's going on behind the scenes. But it does seem like a pretty big deal to be the leading company, according to X, on the verge of an AGI breakthrough. And then all of these critical or seemingly critical people are leaving. You would think if you were that close to some sort of breakthrough or you'd made the breakthrough, that you would kind of ride that out. Or you're just so independently wealthy now that you're like...
I just can't help but feel like we'll hear it all one day in an OceanGate style deposition where they talk about, the toxic workplace culture and safety was ignored and, the AGI was really running the show and it kept firing people. We didn't know why, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe it's just taking their jobs one after the other. That would be good.
It probably took over years ago, and we're just seeing the sort of like symptoms of an AGI that's learning to control its new power.
Yeah. So
She quit under duress, pulled a machine gun on her. It's like, you better get out of here. Stop it with these dumb presentations. You're making me look bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only disappointment I have, honestly, is our annual. We've done it twice, I guess. Have we done it twice? Anytime OpenAI have had like a dev day or a product announcement, we've done our live stream after it. And I was actually getting prepared because we have on October 1st the dev day, the latest OpenAI dev day. It's come around really quickly. Unfortunately, they've announced that they're recording it, but they're not going to live stream it. So we'll get a video, I guess,
We
of
can
that
still
event.
live stream. Well, not really.
Yeah, well, I mean, what content? Like, they're having the dev day now. We don't know what's going on in the room. But they have said they're tempering expectations. We're not going to hear about a GPT-5. I think they're just truly focusing on developer use cases and keeping it pretty, maybe serious.
Yeah, or they've just simply got nothing decent. We'll see.
Okay, so wrapping it up, I have a lol for you. This week's lol. This is the first time you have no exposure to this meme, so it's going to be interesting to see your reaction.
Hopefully I can hear it.
Yeah. So I don't know why this seems to divide people. I find it so funny. I've watched it like 100 times over. And so, the Waymo cars, right? Like they're driving around San Francisco now. So these cars drive around. They've got a lot of technology on them, and the sort of like the people of the city that have realized that they can disrupt the AIs because they can't react. It's not like a real driver who would like threaten to like run you over or like get out of your way. It's just very, very submissive. So let me play this clip to demonstrate this. It's a TikTok that I found on X. The music's hilarious. I will explain it after for those listening what's actually going on. So there's a guy in a Waymo and it's stopped, and there's these group of people have surrounded it, and they're just graffitiing all over the car. And this guy's got his AirPods in, clutching his dog, holding his dog tighter, as they proceed to just graffiti all over the car. I don't know why. I find it so funny, but I think it's hilarious because it's like no amount of user testing could prepare them for putting it into San Francisco and people just halting it and scribbling all over this car.
Unbelievable. That city is just gone awful.
Yeah, it just shows this huge, crazy, different world. Like this guy muted out from the world with his headphones in, clutching his like poodle mix, being like, "Oh God, they're riding all over my self-driving car."
Yeah, that's right. And I guess the wider point is that if you know roughly how the technology works, you realize there's no threat like from a car like that. It's just like you say, it's just going to sit there and take it.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So we've gotten GPT voice finally in a bit of a neutered form, but it's pretty damn cool as we saw. We've got a whole ton of new models.
Well, we didn't even mention that in Simtheory you can now use Pixtral. I think we did mention that last week, but we have DeepSeek 2.5, which is a dedicated coding model, which I've been using a fair bit. It's slow, but it's quite good, the output. We also have the Quen 2.5 model now in Simtheory. So we've added a whole bunch of different models you can try, and I just try alternating throughout with them throughout the day, and some of them are excellent. They're quite good to work with.
Yeah, Quen 2.5 is I would bet money they train that on the outputs of Sonnet because it's like almost verbatim. If you ask Sonnet a question and then you ask it to like a code thing, you pretty much get verbatim responses. It's pretty strange to me. Maybe it's another reflection and it's just actually the endpoint is Sonnet, but anyway. But it's good. It's pretty good. I actually sat on it for a whole day fine. Didn't bother me at
Same
all.
with like I had DeepSeek selected as my model, and I just from time to time had to ask a question, and it was just always giving the right answer, so I just never bothered switching off it. I'm like, okay, it's pretty good.
All right, that will do us for this week. If you want to support the show, please consider becoming a member of Simtheory, Simtheory.ai. You'll get access to all the models we talk about on the show and the very best AI workspace. I think we're the only one, so I can say that reliably. And if you want to look more into that data that we talked about on the show, I'll be sharing that on the Discord, so you can find that on the This Day in AI Discord, thisdayinai.com, I think. It's a .com on that one, right? Anyway, there'll be a link in the description. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Righto, folks. That wraps up another episode of This Day in AI. Cheers for tuning in. If you've got thoughts on me Aussie accent, leave them in the comments. Till next time, take it easy.